Hello, you're listening to the Saluki Gamescast. My name is Justin Young. It is Tuesday, April 8th, 2025. This is episode 109. Joining me as always are Alicia Utecht, Christina Ivey, and Mario Sanders. How is everyone doing? Post Switch 2 announcement.
Tired.
It wore you out?
Basically, yeah.
We should also say you've been at a conference.
Yeah.
Maybe that has a little bit more to do with it.
Just a little.
Maybe. And the fact that, like, I had two defenses yesterday, one for my advisee and one for a PhD candidate. So it's
It's that time of the semester.
I was going to say that, and then I was like, no, Alicia will say it eventually.
Man.
Yeah, it is getting that time. I have multiple things coming up in the next week, like 3 or 4 big things coming up in the next week. So that'll keep me fairly busy. So it is getting that time of the semester. Like if you're outside of academia, like one of the things I don't think people realize is everything happens at the end of the semester. I was explaining to somebody the other day that the yearly training HR training we have to go through is always due at the end of the semester.
Yep.
And I'm like, yeah, they always spring it on us, and they're like, you have 2 weeks to complete this, and it's while you're preparing finals and all that.
And then it's defense season, so if you're on any committees for anything, you have you have to read the document that is sent, and then you have to prepare questions and sit in a meeting for 1 to 2 hours. So.
Well, I mean, you should just record those and turn it into a podcast content.
I do record them, but
Janine's defense.
Yeah,
I would
So
go back and listen to that because I missed the first hour because I was teaching. So
it was just me talking about religious identity, so it's not a big.
All right. Well, we've got a pretty big show because we have all the Switch 2 news, which is continuing to develop as we talk. So let's go ahead and jump right into it and talk about what we've been playing. Alicia, have you been playing anything?
So in honor of the Switch 2 Direct, I have not taken my Switch out of my bag at all yet. No, I've mostly still just been playing Pokemon TCG Pocket, and then I also downloaded another phone game that's Office Cat Idle Tycoon. Yeah.
I like how they just string words together at this point.
This is where my life is at, where I'm like, I have no energy for anything, so let me just be a cat and make money. That's literally the entire game. It's dumb, but it's cute, and somehow I waste 3 hours.
All right. I think that basically explains most mobile games these days.
Yeah.
Cute but dumb.
You're looking it up right now.
No, I'm looking up the game that I had been watching because I forgot the name of it. No, but honestly, I will look it up later.
I kept getting ads for it on the Cat's Mansion game, and I was like, well, sure.
That's how they get you.
That's how they get you.
That's how they get you.
Well, at least they're targeting their ads well, right? To other cat games.
Yep.
Okay. Is that it?
That's really it. Yeah, it's been a crazy week. I'm ready to settle down a little bit now, so.
All right.
Play more cat games.
Yep.
Christina.
So in terms of playing, it really is that time of the semester, and I've only had time to actually play the phone games. I did watch a game the other day that was pretty interesting. It's called Order 13. And essentially you are working as kind of like in a warehouse fulfilling orders. And you have to, it's obvious that you sleep in the warehouse and you have a cat.
So more cat games.
Yeah, more cat games. It's that time in the semester, Alicia. And when you leave, though, to go fulfill the order, your cat, you have a timer going on, and your cat gets real mad if you're gone for a certain amount of time.
Accurate.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. And then the more money you make, the more you can buy things to placate your cat, so that you have a longer timer. So a litter box, or a cat tree, or things like that. the more you play the game, though, there's like monsters in the warehouse. And so those are dangerous too, and they will block you from getting back to your cat.
Why do I feel like the cat is going to be like an eldritch being?
I mean, look at him. He's got little devil horns on. Look at that guy. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Right? And yeah, it's just, yeah, I enjoyed watching it. Because, like, when you're there, the cat just, like, climbs up on things and you can hear him purring and stuff. And so, yeah, my house, basically. But yeah, it was really interesting. Yeah.
All right. That it?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Mario?
Played a little more Split Fiction. It's a good game. Should play it if you have the chance to. And the other thing I played...
You sound so enthusiastic about it.
I don't know what else to really say about it. It's very good.
Okay.
It really is. It Takes Two with some new story, and sounds not great, but it's fantastic.
It Takes Two with less divorce.
So far.
Okay.
Well, because I mean, technically there is zero divorce, and It Takes Two, right? They get close to it.
It's implied divorce, right?
Well, but they end up fixing things.
I
at
mean, like
they
just
repair
general
their
discussion of divorce. There's an awful lot in that for a video game.
That is
it may
true.
be the most divorce game ever made.
And then the other one that I played, this is always a game that, like, if I'm flying somewhere, I'll play a round or two, is Hyrule Warriors, the Dynasty Warriors. And I think seeing the new one get announced, I was like, oh, I never did finish that game, or I can go and play it. The Warriors games are not like, they're kind of mindless, which I think is totally fantastic from time to time. Yeah, I don't know if I really have much more to say about it. It's good. It's well done. But that's what I've played.
I like that first one. I never played the one they made exclusively for the Switch.
Breath of the Wild one.
Right. It was the Age of Calamity.
That sounds right. Yeah, I haven't played that one. I don't have that one. But yeah, this is the original one, or the definitive one that they made, that they re-released for the Switch.
Yeah. It's fun. It's mindless fun, but it is sort of the type of game that you kind of drop in and drop out. Like, you're not going to marathon playing it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's too repetitive for that.
Yeah, it's a good one of those we've talked about. I've got 30 minutes. I could probably get through maybe one or two levels at least. So
A good podcast game, too.
Definitely.
All right. You don't really have to be giving your full attention to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's really all I've played, or at least all that I've played that is probably worth talking about.
Okay. Let's see. I'm continuing to play 2 Point Museum. Not really anything new to really share about that. I continue to think it's good. This will get to our later topic, but it is coming to Switch too. They did announce it for that, so that's kind of neat. Another thing that I dipped back into was I played a little bit of Minecraft this week because of all the hype around the film and everything.
Got to get all the lore.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. I mean, I have to understand the chicken jockey like meme.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
See, I'm going to go in blind to the movie.
Yeah. I'm going in so blind.
Have neither of you ever played Minecraft?
No.
I've never played Minecraft.
Minecraft is a legitimately good game. Like, it's one of those things that's very easy, I think, to write off, and then you go and you play it, and you're like, wait, this is actually like compelling and can like completely engross you. So during COVID, I got into Minecraft and played like quite a bit of it for a while because I had lots of free time to kill.
Yeah, right.
And like it's like it is basically it often gets described as digital Legos.
Yeah.
And it is very much like, hey, I just want to go build something.
Yeah.
And can I build what I want, right? And I think the more creative you are, the more like you like get those sort of like bees in your bonnet to like go build something. Like, the more that game is going to appeal. Like, the actual gameplay isn't that great. Like the stuff with like the Elder Sword and killing the dragon, all that stuff. Like
Yeah.
that appeals almost zero to me. But like just like digging out caves and tunnels and that sort of stuff is quite engaging to me. So yeah, like here I am. I'm going out on a ledge here. I'm going to recommend Minecraft. Like if you've not played it before.
That's a hot take, Justin.
Yeah, I know. Just that's what people come to this podcast for, Mario. The hottest takes on
Minecraft may be a playable game.
on 15-year-old games that are the best-selling game of all time.
Scorching hot.
Yeah, so that does it for what we've been playing. Let's get to the news because we have a ton of news. We are talking all about the Switch 2 because we had our big reveal last Wednesday.
Well, let's start with the most important news, right? The Minecraft movie has outsold the Super Mario Brothers movie for its first 3 days or whatever.
That's
the
true.
most important video game news that has come out in the last week. We could
Yeah.
probably just cut the episode there.
I was gonna say it's all because of Jack Black, but he played Bowser, so it's obviously Jason Momoa.
It's totally because of Jason Momoa.
Well, I mean, look, Jack Black made it a hit. Jason Momoa put it over the top of the Mario movie, right? Like he's that special sauce that Jack Black alone can't bring.
I'm gonna write this down. Jason Momoa is
Jason
that special
Momoa's
sauce.
special sauce.
Look, he's probably already selling that. But anyways, yes, it is the #1 movie this past weekend, and it is also the biggest opening ever for a video game movie.
Tune in next week. We'll talk about it after we've gone and seen it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Podcast field trip.
Oh no.
Justin, you just recommended
you were just
it.
talking about
You
I gotta
just
go in
recommended
to
Minecraft.
understand all these memes.
You just recommended Minecraft.
And now you're like,
hottest
I don't
take.
know if I want. We went and saw Borderlands, and you're gonna.
yeah, what?
You're gonna
Maybe
be like,
I
"Oh."
learned my lesson. That film
I don't know,
also
you guys-
featured Jack Black.
I don't know. You guys also
Honestly,
went to
so
see
true.
Garfield, so I don't know if you've ever learned your lesson.
That film also featured Jack Black. No, it didn't. I don't think it did. Maybe.
I don't think so.
But look, part of the problem is it does feature Jack Black, and Jack Black I like, but a little bit of Jack Black goes a long way. And like, well, you tell me I'm wrong.
No, that's fair. Jumanji is the movie that convinced me he could actually act instead of just being an over-exaggerated version of
Like
himself.
everybody, when they talk about Jack Black, they talk about High Fidelity and they talk about School of Rock, and then you're
and
like,
Kung Fu Panda.
yes, but he's doing a voice, right? Like it's different between
Okay.
like the full Jack Black. It's like the full Monty.
What movie were you watching?
I am pretty sure that Jack Black has been nude in a movie before.
I mean, if not, probably on set, multiple sets.
Oh
just
my
'cause.
gosh.
I feel like I have seen that in some movies before.
Nope.
You have never seen Jack Black nude?
Not that I remember. Only in my dreams, Justin.
This seems like something that happened in Nacho Libre or something.
Honestly, no. Okay, I
could-
love that
I could
movie.
believe
I
that.
love that movie so much. He's not naked.
Okay. He's half naked
I
in
mean,
that movie.
yeah. But he's a wrestling guy, so they wear very little clothes.
Well, hang on, let me check with Mario, our
Yeah,
wrestling scholar. Is that accurate, Mario?
Sometimes.
All right, so let's actually talk about the Switch now, since we've gotten our Minecraft
To
discussion
switch
out
our
of the way.
focus back to Switch 2.
So last Wednesday, Nintendo did an hour-long direct, just completely focused on the Switch 2. They wrote out some more details about the hardware, our first real look at software and everything. And so we're going to kind of go through and talk about this. There's obviously some things that are still up in the air, and we'll touch on that when we get to it. But I thought let's start with the easiest thing to discuss, the hardware. They announced that it will have a 1080p screen. I think that was sort of surprising to a lot of people, like that it will run in 1080p potentially on the mobile when it's not docked. It has a 120 frame per second screen. That was a big shock.
Yeah.
You know, like even if it can do that on docked, the fact that they would even bother with that for the undocked screen. It is going to have 256 gigabytes of storage. That's up from 32 on the current Switches. It includes a microphone. We'll talk more about why in a couple of minutes. It has HDR. The screen is now 7.9 inches. That's up from, I believe, 6.3, 6.2. And it also has a separate USB-C camera that you can attach. So that's pretty much all the hardware. Looking at that, how do you feel about the hardware?
The storage is the one that stands out the most
Yeah.
to me,
Yes, thank
at least.
goodness.
Like that's a pretty massive upgrade from what the base Switch is.
Yeah. That was the thing for me that I was like, oh, thank God.
Yeah, because I had the base Switch and I ran out quickly and had to get one of the
Yeah, with the base
singles.
Switch, you almost have to,
Yeah.
like, you have to buy an SD card.
Yeah.
And, like, you'll probably want one for this, but
Yeah.
you can go a little bit
Yes.
before you actually need
Because
one.
I want to say the SD card I have is like 256. So it's like,
Because what is it, 32 on the original
Yeah,
Switch?
Something
I
absurdly small like that.
imagine there are multiple games that are just too big to put on
For sure.
the Switch itself. I probably the newest Pokemon game is too big to put on.
I remember OJ said that they had to get a SD card to have Mortal Kombat 1 on Switch all alone, and then that was Mortal Kombat 1 on
Yeah,
Switch.
that's not
I
surprising.
had to for the Switch version of Dead by Daylight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when you think about the modern Call of Duty games are like 100 gigabytes by themselves. So you're not putting Call of Duty like in just the Switch one's memory, right?
Yeah.
So you could conceivably do that on the Switch too. Now, the problem is, right, when you start thinking, especially digitally, how many games can you put on here? Games now are getting up to 50 gigabytes. So you could conceivably still burn through this pretty quickly and need an SD card. Actually, SD Express is the new format for this. So this actually does have faster memory. The SD Express cards are faster than the traditional SD cards. All of that is to give faster loading times for these games. When we talk about Tears of the Kingdom, the update for it, that's one of the things that they brag about is that it loads considerably faster. So, yeah, I mean, I think that memory is a pretty big deal there. I think the bigger screen will be a big deal, especially for me. Like, I like big screens. So, like, that's... And along with that, because they're making the screen bigger, they're also making the Joy-Cons bigger,
Yes.
Yeah.
which is a big help for me. My hands cramp up pretty quickly when I'm playing the Switch in mobile mode. And so, like, actually, like, having something that might be slightly more comfortable for people with larger hands, like,
Yeah.
that'll be a big deal.
I think the most recent thing I saw that people were talking about that Nintendo announced is the Joy-Cons or the joysticks don't feature some thing that
The Hall effect.
that may or may not affect drift at some point. Can you talk more about that? That's all that I've really seen, but
Yeah, so the Joy-Cons, they claim, have been rebuilt from the ground up, redesigned. So they believe they have solved the drift issue with them. The Hall effect, which is what a lot of your third-party controllers are moving to, is that it uses magnets in order.
Yeah.
So, like, the first Hall effect joystick I remember was the Dreamcast controllers. And because they use magnets, they don't wear over time. And so they don't suffer from that drift effect. Nintendo claims that they have solved this. We shall see. You know, like, obviously that was a big problem with the Switch 1 Joy-Cons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine they want that to be an issue again, but obviously probably their solution is cheaper than putting the Hall effect sticks in there.
Sure, having to pay for whatever that patent is and stuff. And so I know that that's been talked about, that there's worry about it, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see is ultimately what the response has to be, I guess.
Yeah.
So one of the big surprises during this, they did show off this USB-C camera. So one of the questions was, why were they adding a second USB-C port to the Switch? So now there's one on top as well as one on bottom of the Switch unit. People speculated, well, it changes how you can like plug it in and everything, so you can play it while it's charging, right? But like the big benefit from this seems to be that they have accessories they want to sell you, so that while your system is plugged into the dock, you can plug this into the top USB-C port. It is a 1080p camera. They did reveal that. And this camera is going to be used both for games and for chat functionality with the Switch. So let's go ahead and move into that before we get into the question of, is this something that actually interests you at all? Because one of the big additions to the Joy-Cons was a new C button. People speculate what that would be. It turns out it is for the new game chat functionality. So built in at the hardware level, instead of having to tether your cell phone in order to chat with people while playing Switch games, is going to be built in at a hardware level. The microphone is built in there. You can buy this additional camera. Game chat is basically, it is not Discord, but it is basically aping Discord in design. So that you can have, be talking to other people. They show basically 4 other people that you're talking to in a chat at the same time. You can talk to them while you're playing games and everything, but you can also share your gameplay while you're doing this. So like your game window kind of moves up and shrinks to the top of the screen, and then they have 4 windows at the bottom of the screen that show whatever they're playing, and it does not necessarily have to be the same game as you. And then also, if you have the camera accessory, they can actually do video chat, and it does what sort of NVIDIA's graphics cards on the PC do. It'll do the background removal without a green screen. So it showed them superimposing video of people talking to you while their gameplay is in the background. So it sort of looks like Twitch, right? And so, I could see for like little kids who are maybe like used to watching Twitch and everything, this lets them like do that in a really easy fashion. And one of the neat things is they said you're going to be able to use basically any USB-C camera with this. So what do you think about game chat?
I'm really excited for it personally. I mean, I know that it is basically just aping Discord, and it's not like, but I do think it'll also be really nice. Like if I want to play a game with my sister, we live in different states, and I could set up my computer and set up the Switch and do that. But
I play a lot of Fall Guys with Melissa, so yeah.
Yeah, and like the possibility to sit and play different games from each other and like hang out while we're doing it and see each other's gameplay if something cool is happening. I'm really excited about this personally.
I guess I don't know, like, yay camera. I mean, I could give or take the camera. I'm glad the chat function is there, but I know, aren't some people kind of upset by this because of like it being a children's really geared towards children, and that was Nintendo's reasoning for not having it before now?
Well, it's my understanding is it's only available if you have a Nintendo Switch Online membership, and so you're not streaming doing this,
right?
You're just doing it with your people.
Well, we don't know that like there won't be streaming functionality as a possibility, right? Like that could be something they could announce, like, hey, you can also, while you're doing this, stream to Twitch or YouTube. But they have not announced that. We should be clear.
Yeah.
They did say that there's the game chat stuff. Like I think the only time I saw it get brought up in the direct was the parental controls or restrictions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where you could set it up where you just like grant permission sort of like in perpetuity to chat with certain people, or like as a parent you would have to like approve every single time, or like specific people you would have to approve whether or not. So, one of the people who I was watching, they were talking about, he was like, I don't think I would really ever use this outside of playing with like my nephews. And that's one thing where I was like, that to me makes sense. And it's like, my niece doesn't really play games, but if she were to ever get a Switch, like that's who I would probably use this for. Or maybe like my stepsister and her fiance, like, I would play with them. But otherwise, I don't see myself using this. I will probably just continue to use Discord. But I think for those close relationships or those close friendships, you with your sister Alicia, I think like that, or with Melissa as well, like that to me makes sense. But I do think that I mean, I don't know if there's the ability to play with like random people on game
I think
chat.
that's what I was seeing some parents worrying about, was that their kid is on playing, I don't know.
I got the vibe that that it had to be intentional, that you couldn't just
Gotcha.
randomly do it.
I mean, it's very possible that you might be able to invite, like if you're playing a game like on a team, like on a Fall Guys squad, you could probably invite them into like voice chat the same way.
But if there's parental controls for that,
if there's parental
even the
controls,
NSO
and
membership
obviously,
block.
again, I'd like to think that you could just reject that.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
But I mean, I do think that's a totally valid concern.
Yeah.
This is Nintendo, so we'll probably still have friend codes.
Yeah.
It'll still be probably super restrictive compared to something like PlayStation Network or Xbox Live. I mean, I think my biggest issue with this is this feels like Nintendo 15 years too late to the party.
Yeah.
Like this feels like Nintendo saying, hey, we've got Xbox Live circa Xbox 360 era, right? Like everything down to the camera and, like the chat and everything. And so, like, I feel like a lot of this, the novelty is over. So most people aren't going to care.
Yeah.
Except for, I think, what you're talking about, like being able to chat with somebody really easily playing the game without having to pull out your cell phone and pull up Discord or something.
It's definitely the convenience I'm excited for, not the novelty.
Yeah. And so like that, I completely buy into, right? If I'm going to play Splatoon online, making that easy to chat with people while I play Splatoon is a definite plus. Like all the novelty factors of it, seeing what other people are playing and stuff, that to me probably is less interesting. But like I completely get wanting to be able to chat with people. But I will say, this is Nintendo. This is the console that you buy little kids. All my friends who have young children have a Switch, right? So I do see like the potential for the novelty for little kids because, like I said, you look like you're a Twitch streamer. If I had like an 8-year-old, like lots of 8-year-olds are really into watching Twitch, right? And now they get to pretend like they're a Twitch streamer in a very controlled way where I can control that they're just doing this with their friends.
Yeah.
And they get to, like yell and scream and everything. Like,
like I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit later too, but like getting to, they showed off with Super Mario Party Jamboree TV of like getting to literally put yourself in. Like,
which also feels very gimmicky, like Xbox 360 era, like Kinect sort of games, right? Like, or even more so iToy for the PlayStation. But yeah, for like little
for
kids,
an 8-year-old.
But I mean, even for adults, like, I mean, that certainly doesn't hurt in a Mario Party game, right?
Yeah.
Mario Party games are already gimmicky.
Yeah, I think it's a good like party mode, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
for something like that, or you're at a party and you can do that, you know, where it's already a little silly and unserious.
Yeah.
So we should say one of the things that they showcased with the camera and with this group chat is being able to like show people's faces. So like something like Mario Party Jamboree, where it can be really difficult for people can very easily forget, well, who's playing Toad, who's playing Wario. They can put a little bubble next to the character with like your face. And so they didn't show this during the direct, but I saw it in some of the footage from people who had went and played it live. They had a camera set up and they had 4 people playing, and it captured all 4 of their faces and put them next to their characters.
Yeah.
Which I'm assuming they use like the Bluetooth and the controllers to determine who is who with that. But like I thought that was a pretty cool feature because like I was thinking like playing for pets, people come in and sometimes it's very difficult to remember, oh, well, who's playing as Luigi right now? And this would actually like stick their face up there for you to be able to see.
Or even if you just come in like halfway through the game, right? You don't have to ask who is who.
Yeah. So like I see that being really useful also for streaming. Like if you're going to have people like together streaming something, like
Because I've definitely hopped on to watch Mario Party streams, even of like streamers, YouTubers who I'm familiar with, like AlphaRad and Jaden Animations, and I'm like, who's playing who? I mean, AlphaRad's Peach, but who else is who?
right.
Well, that or I think about even in a Mario Kart where it's easy to like change characters
Right.
as
Yeah.
well. You know, I was watching friends play Mario Kart just the other day. They were on Discord playing, and one of the friends, like, he was changing characters, not every race, but like every few races he would change as somebody new. And so I was like, oh wait, no, wait, you know, like,
Yeah.
and so something like that would also just for, I mean, I don't know if that's like a priority of theirs, but if you are watching this, that does make it certainly a lot easier to keep track of those characters.
Yeah. So like I actually see, I don't think I'll probably buy the camera because it would only be for like when people came over.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to stream myself playing with people using the camera. So it would almost entirely be for when people came over to play something like the Mario Party mode or something like that. So it probably is not something that, at least not initially, I won't buy it at launch.
Yeah. No, I'll wait for the PD Piranha one to go on sale.
So
Because that does look fun having PD Piranha just like propped up by my TV. But
so that thing looks really cool, but they did it finally like put out details that it actually is a lower resolution camera than the official Switch 2 one. Which
that's boring.
which is very disappointing because I agree that camera looks cool.
Losers, why would they do that?
Well, that's not actually made by Nintendo.
Yeah.
That's made by
I'll say
Hori,
because it's
I
third
think.
party.
Yeah. The other feature that they showed off was Game Share. And this is where locally, if I had a Switch and the 3 of you had your Switches with you, I could actually like share the game with you. So we could all be playing separately on our Switches. So I mentioned Clubhouse Games is one of the games where they showcase this. So like if we were playing one of the, they have 51 mini games in that. Obviously Mario Party would make a lot of sense for this. So like any sort of mini game thing, I think sports games would also make a lot of sense. I could imagine something like NBA 2K using this feature. And apparently this is actually streaming the video to the other Switches. It is not actually like sending the game itself. So the cool thing about that, my understanding, what they've said and shown is one person needs to have a Switch 2, but the other 3 people could have a Switch 1, and it would work with that. So,
We'll have to test that.
again, this like kind of gets back to that whole ideal, right? Of people who have a Switch 1, they're going to buy a Switch 2. They give the Switch 1 to their kids or something. This then becomes a way for them to play together, right?
Yeah.
And so it makes an awful lot of sense from that perspective. That's not something I probably will use that often, but like it's knowing that it works with Switch ones makes that a lot cooler because, yeah, I mean, Alicia, you saying, like, one of us gets a Switch 2 at launch, we can bring it in and kind of all play together and test it out that way, which would be pretty neat.
I think it's just nice so that not everybody has to have the game.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know, I don't have Mario Kart, but to know like, oh, I could just go in and play Mario Kart with all of you, or I could play Mario Party because...
Or like Super Smash Bros.
Yeah.
It took me so long to get that game. It would have been so nice to be able to do that for...
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think particularly for kids, right, like who might take this to school or something, and then they don't need a TV to hook up to. You don't necessarily have to have a dock, and as long as people have Switches, you can all play together.
Bring it to your friend's house for a sleepover or something like that. Absolutely.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think these features are easy to dismiss because I think a lot of people aren't going to use them an awful lot of the time. But if it fits your sort of niche use case, which I think we've talked about, then I think they're actually like fantastic features.
Yeah.
Okay, then came the price. So we should say first, it got announced for release June 5th.
Second, they didn't announce the price during the Direct. It came out after.
Yeah, so there's speculation as to why that was. And we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
So June 5th, they announced 2 different packages. At $450 is just the base console and the dock. And at $500 is that package with a digital copy of Mario Kart World. We should note that Mario Kart World is priced at $80. So you're paying $50 for an $80 game, essentially, with that $500 package.
That's Justin's great deal for however long that's available.
I was gonna say, have they come? Because I know there was a minute where they kind of walked back and were like, well, maybe with tariffs, we don't know that it'll still be that price. But have they solidified?
No. So in the United States, they were supposed to start taking pre-orders tomorrow, which would be April 9th. That's what they announced during the show. Then that same day that this got announced, last Wednesday, was when Trump announced his tariffs.
Yeah.
So it is important to understand why people were caught off guard by the tariffs, because Trump's been talking about them. People expected a 10% flat tariff to all countries.
Yeah.
And so that seems to be what Nintendo had sort of built into some of their pricing.
Yeah.
Now they have put out statements saying, "Oh, we weren't taking into consideration tariffs," but like most people think the pricing reflects that 10% tariff. He did not put 10% tariffs on most countries. He put quite a bit higher, including countries like Vietnam and Taiwan, where a lot of these are actually getting manufactured. Nintendo actually moved manufacturing out of China because they were trying to get around potential tariffs against China, which they assumed would be quite high, which actually Trump, like yesterday, was threatening 50% additional tariffs onto China on top of what is already there. And when they announced these tariffs for like Vietnam, it was like 40% tariffs. So that was last Wednesday. On Friday, they put out a statement, which Tamur Hussein at GameSpot was the first person to put this out. So I don't know if they gave it to him first or he just got to social media first, but he was the one I kept seeing everybody quote initially. Nintendo later put it out officially on their social media. And essentially they said, hey, because of tariffs, we need to reconsider some details. So we are going to keep the launch day of June 5th, but we are not going to be taking pre-orders next Wednesday, tomorrow, on April 9th. They have been taking pre-orders in other countries. So like the UK, I know, for example, has opened up pre-orders. But in the US, those have been delayed. Many people speculate that will come with a price increase.
Yeah. And I also know that like the Senate passed something about like blocking. I know the ones to Canada, and I'm pretty certain some other countries are listed on that as well. So it's probably going to be a bit.
Yeah. The House has so far refused to take up that Senate bill.
Yeah.
So they're refusing to even discuss it, let alone vote on it. Yeah. So, we don't know, right? We should note that the stock market has been in free fall. That stock market in free fall not only obviously affects Americans and our ability to buy things, but it is also affecting foreign companies.
Yep.
Yeah.
So like companies like Sony and Nintendo are seeing their stock prices hit, even though they're in international markets, because at the end of the day, right, the U.S. economy floundering affects the world economy.
Yeah.
So we don't know what the price is going to be on this, basically. So let's go with the impression of 450 and 500. Yeah. I think these are the prices we had kind of talked about when we were speculating what the price might be.
Yeah, we had said 400 or 450.
Yeah. So how do you feel about 450 and 500?
I did not sign up for pre-order. That's how I feel. My wallet is crying.
I did. I mean, at least with the 500, they included a game, and so it makes it feel like a deal, even if it.
Yeah. No, I feel like when I do buy it, I will do the 500 instead of the 450 to get that Mario Kart game. Mm-hmm. But
I do believe those are going to only be for a limited time. That 500 deal. Granted, there may be another game in the future that they bundle with, almost assuredly.
Yeah.
But the Mario Kart one, I believe, is not. That's not going to be like forever available.
Rip! I better sign up for pre-order then.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what they have said. They've said it's while supplies last, but like we should also note every Christmas for the Switch, they have put out the Mario Kart bundle. They have re-released that bundle, and I think it's now just like the full-time bundle for the current Switch.
It's possible. I mean, I think it'll depend on how popular World is, whether or not, that's the one that they return to, but other bundles will be available again, almost assuredly. So whenever, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a Metroid Prime 2 bundle, whenever that comes out. Maybe not a Donkey Kong bundle because that's still really early on in release, but there will be bundles available if Mario Kart World or not.
Oh.
So, one of the things we'll get talking about Mario Kart World, is it worth $80? My initial reaction to that price, and everybody freaked out about $80 as the price for Mario Kart World, which I completely understand. I think that price is very much to force people's hands to the $500 bundle.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think that Nintendo's looking at it saying, hey, we're going to pack this in. How do we make, because like really that doesn't cost them anything. What they're giving you is a code in the box, right? So they have manufactured this game to launch the system with. It was the best-selling game of the last console generation for them, sold over 50 million copies. They want everybody to pay $500 because really that extra $50 is basically pure profit for them, right? Especially once they've recouped the budget, whatever they spent making Mario Kart World.
Yep.
That becomes pure profit for them. So they jack up the price of Mario Kart World to $80. And now all of a sudden, buying it in the bundle, you're saving not just $20, but you're saving $30. You'd be crazy not to buy the $500 bundle because you're going to buy Mario Kart World eventually anyway. Especially like this first year, right? Because like that's their big game. Right? Like, would you go buy the system at launch and not buy Mario Kart World?
As a person who's not really a Mario Kart person, but
I've never bought Mario Kart 8 after all these years.
Would you buy it at launch then? Because like, there's nothing else really inciting you to buy it.
Well, that's what I was just about to say. Like for me, launch day is probably when Donkey Kong comes out.
It comes out a month later. It comes out in July.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. Like my launch date is when Donkey Kong comes out, because that's the first game that I'm like, that's the one that I would really want. At least it's a first party. If I were to somehow get it at launch, I would still get that $500 bundle. But like Mario Kart's not a game that I'm like, oh my God, I have to get this.
But I think it is for most people.
Oh, absolutely.
Buying a
Like,
Switch.
I recognize I am probably more of the exception when it comes to that. Like,
Sure.
you know, they sold 50 million copies. I am not one of those 50 million copies of Mario Kart 8 or whatever number they're at. So like for me, the $500 bundle is absolutely still the way that I would go. I signed up for the pre-orders. I don't anticipate, you know, getting one or being, you know, approved because of all the other restrictions that they placed on who's eligible for those pre-orders.
Sure.
But like if I were, the $500 one is still the one that I would get because again, there's nothing else really that like says it to me, but like July, whatever, Donkey Kong comes out 18th or something like that. That's the first one when I'm like, okay, this is where I'm really like, I feel like I'm missing out on something. Otherwise, I will enjoy watching friends play Mario Kart.
And I like Mario Kart, but like more than anything, Mario Kart becomes like the game when people come over.
Sure.
Like whoever is over, if it's my sister and niece, I can sit down with them and play Mario Kart. Obviously, like with students, like with things like playing for pets, but like anytime friends come over, that's the game I can break out. Everybody's comfortable.
Absolutely.
And I think like at $500, it's crazy not to buy that bundle.
Yeah.
I also fully agree with that.
Yeah. So like, I think there's a reason they're pricing that game that high. Like, I mean, they say there's other reasons, but like, I think more than anything it's to force your hand, and they get $500 out of you instead of $450.
Yeah.
As for sticking with this price, the $450 and $500, I'm not surprised. I think that's kind of what I was expecting. I mean, $400 and $450, sure, that would have been nice, but I'm not all that surprised. And if I believe they've said this will be about equivalent power as a PlayStation 4, right? Like the base PlayStation 4, is that correct? Or that's the speculation, at least.
I think people actually speculate it's closer to a PlayStation 4 Pro.
Okay. I mean, in terms of like what that launched for when adjusted for inflation, it's cheaper than that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, I don't think that this is some ridiculous overpriced for what is actually being offered. Do I want to spend $500? No, because I don't want to spend $500 on like anything. But I mean, it seems like a fair price in my opinion.
I think the folks who are upset at the price are not paying attention to like the gaming community. So like for families who are upset about it, it's because the Nintendo what Nintendo puts out is the only console they buy.
Sure, and I think that's totally fair. Like if I had multiple kids where I'm thinking like I'm gonna have to buy like multiple of these, that would be like holy moly, that's a lot. But
there's a reason like we were able to predict around this number.
Yeah. No, I probably sounded more salty than I really was. I'm like, I didn't
You're
register
also a
because I'm a grad
student.
student.
What grad student just has $500 like just laying around? You know what I mean? Like,
like I wouldn't have pre-registered for $400 either.
I didn't say you had to be happy about it. You just understand it.
Yeah, I completely get people being frustrated because it's a price going up.
Yeah.
It is $150 more than the Switch was at launch, right? Like basically a 50% increase.
Yeah.
Like that's a huge price increase. And like we can sit here all we want and say, well, it's in line with the Xbox and the PlayStation 5 and it's portable and it's in line with the Steam Deck, right? Like, and I think that's all rational and fine. But I also get like, I say my friends with little kids have a Switch. I also get all of them balking at $450 to $500.
That's still $450 to $500 leaving your bank account, right?
Yeah.
Like, no, that doesn't change it. That
when I was a kid, I sent around that graphic in the private chat about like adjusted for inflation. The original NES was like $450 to $500, right? But like when I was a kid, at Christmas, well, first off, I didn't get a new game system every Christmas because my parents would have been like, "You're not even gonna like, you don't have money to buy games. Like, why do you need 5 or 6 game systems?" But like if I got an NES, right, and NES was like $180, $200. Okay, that's $200. This is 2.5 times that price, right? Like that's a lot to spend at Christmas on like one present.
Yep.
Like that becomes very easy to say, okay, this is your one present.
Yeah.
This is all you get for Christmas.
Yeah.
That, or again, if you have 2 kids, like this is both of your like you are sharing
There's a family
this.
present.
Yeah.
Right. And I think probably that's what a lot of people will have to do to justify it, right? Like this becomes the family gift that we all play together, right?
Which then inspires you to have it on the dock more and use the USB camera and do all that.
Yeah. I mean,
Versus, handheld. No, it's my turn. I get it. Versus if it's on the dock, you can play together more easily.
yeah. So like I completely get, I think people who are really overreacting to the price are being a little kind of silly. Like for people to say they couldn't see like people who follow the game industry, people who are terminally online, you saw this price coming.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
not a shock. For casual people, for parents, I completely get this being a bit of sticker shock.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I don't want to spend that kind of money on it. But I'm also like, the Switch has never come down in price.
Yeah.
In 8 years, that thing has never dropped in price. I mean, unless you count like packing in Mario Kart at some point, you getting a game with it, it's never dropped in price. My feeling is this thing will probably not drop in price. And so I look at it and go, well, if it's never going to drop in price, it's probably better to buy at least close to launch that first year than wait until like year 5, because like you might still be paying the same money
Yeah.
in year 5.
Well, that's like I remember I was thrilled to not have that. I was like, I don't have to get a Switch when Terry and I were dating because I used his, and then when we broke up, I was like, well, okay, I'm buying a Switch because I have these games, but I'm gonna need to get Switch 2 in like 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm at 3 now, but I was like, damn, that's $300 out the window that I could have just waited 3 years and gotten the next one.
And I think that's one of the things to also consider is that the generations are getting longer. So it's been 8 years with the original Switch. And when you think 8 years, $500 over 8 years is a lot better than $500 over 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've talked about all that. Let's actually get into the games because that's the whole reason we would consider buying any of this. So the big game, only one that we really kind of knew for sure was coming is the new Mario Kart. They titled it Mario Kart World. This is an open world Mario Kart. It sort of is like some of the Need for Speed or even Burnout games like Burnout Paradise specifically, in that it's sort of an open world, but then there are racetracks within that open world. And so one of the main features is that you race like 4 successive races that sort of like cover part of the map, and you just race from one race to the next race to the next race. So instead of like
Go off track and
instead of loading out, it just kind of goes into the next race. Seems to be the way it works.
So I will say, while I am not a Mario Kart person, this design is probably the most intriguing
yeah.
to me. Like that would pushes me far more interested in getting it than if it was just a sort of typical Mario Kart.
Yeah.
Because I would say, and it doesn't seem like they did it because it would have absolutely been announced. This would have been the perfect instance for them to make a single player Diddy Kong racing, Crash Team racing mode where you're like interacting with people on that world as well. If they had done that, I'd have bought this immediately.
Yeah.
But I think, I don't know if I said this to you, Justin, when you had talked about it the other day. I know I had sort of thought about it. I think growing up as an only child, multiplayer games are not like the default that I seek out, right?
Sure.
Like if a game has that single player mode, that's the thing that like I'm sort of oriented to more often.
Fair,
And so if it had that, it instantly would have bought it. But like I said, because they haven't said anything about it and I don't imagine that's going to come, it's lower on my list as compared to
No,
Donkey Kong,
that
right?
makes sense because like Mario Kart, Smash Bros, those were like must-haves. So Brittany and I could play at the same time.
I will say though, you get to play as the cow.
I mean,
from Moo Moo
so-
Meadows.
so
See
true.
that. Okay.
So
I've got the Moo Moo Meadows cow shirt. Like
Yeah.
I'm excited about it, but
like that's
Do
the
you really?
I do.
that's the number one reason for me. I'm like, let me be the cow.
I think that's Nintendo like really having some fun with this, like
Yeah.
giving like some fan service in that way. I mean, there were two basic theories about this new Mario Kart. One was open world, which is what we're getting. The second one was that this was going to be Super Smash Kart. And it was just going to bring in all the Nintendo characters and all the different levels. They've done that a little bit with Mario Kart 8. They have the F-Zero levels. They have the Zelda
Hyrule
levels. So I think, there was a lot of reason to expect that might be part of this. It doesn't seem to be. I would be shocked if we don't get some guest characters. Maybe
I'm
it's
sure.
DLC or something of that nature. They did announce a separate direct just for this game. I believe that's like April 17th or something in there.
Yeah.
And they have said that there is a reason they think this game is worth $80. So I feel like there's something big that they're holding back on this game.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that is. I wonder if it's something more kind of a single player mode, because one of the things that they show is a free roam mode.
Yeah.
And like they have this big world. There's got to be something out there for you to discover.
Yeah.
And that to me is why like this game screams it should have something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Because all of those at least had some sort of open hub, like
Yeah.
Diddy Kong Racing or Crash Team Racing. Like that's what made that was so much a part of that game.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this is more than just a hub, but like that's where it seems like there's something to that. I will say one thing that this game is doing that I think is really cool. I will probably enjoy watching people play it, but again, it's just not really my thing, is that they have a sort of battle royale mode where you're racing like almost all the way across the map. It looks like maybe across like 8 tracks, and there's like a cutoff. You have to be, there's starts
top
with 24.
75
Exactly. You've got to be the top 16 to continue on. You've got to be the top 8 to continue on.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really cool idea, especially again when you're using this like large open world as part of your design. So I think that's very cool of them to include.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll say this game looks really good. Like, I mean, like it is kind of interesting to look at it because it is not like a huge leap over the graphics of Mario Kart 8. But it looks like they've taken that and all this extra power and used it to like keep that sort of cartoonish aesthetic and everything of Mario Kart 8, but to build on it. So like there's the water looks better. The characters are more animated in their carts, right? Like instead of being like quite so like they look like almost like action figures like riding around.
Yeah. They're
They're animating and doing things while you're driving. It just, I always say Mario Kart 8 is one of the most aesthetically pleasing games of the last console generation.
Yeah.
The deluxe version on the Switch. It looks really good while you're playing it.
Yeah.
And this is a step up on that. And, with the power of the Switch 2, it makes me think like when you're doing local multiplayer instead of having to downgrade the graphics, this will be a solid, 60 frames per second, which is what you want in a racing game. Yeah, so we'll see what they reveal more about that game. I completely understand. I was, really hoping for a 3D Mario game at launch rather than Mario Kart, because that is, I'm sort of like you, like that will sell me a lot more, a very in-depth single player game. But they did give us their big single player game. It is not a new Mario game, but it is the rumored 3D Donkey Kong game. So Donkey Kong Bananza, which is coming out at only $70, which is relative, I suppose. Like, we're all happy that it's $70.
Yeah.
Like, when Switch One games were, for the most part, 60.
Yeah, 70, I think, is just the new norm for
Yeah.
any sort of AAA flagship game.
So this has the new design of Donkey Kong. So we saw that in the preview of Mario Kart when they first announced the Switch 2, and people pointed out Donkey Kong looks different. We see why now because of this new game. And this is a 3D platformer, much more akin to, say, Donkey Kong 64 than the Donkey Kong Country games. But the big sales point is they got Red Faction into my Donkey Kong. So you have destructible environments. You can burrow holes into the ground. You can knock down walls. Look, Red Faction Guerrilla is like one of the all-time underrated video games because you're on Mars and you can literally blow up anything and blow holes into anything, and it's just a fun playground of destruction. And they made that with Donkey Kong, and it looks
like a lot of fun.
This game looks like a blast to play.
Yeah, last week when we were talking about, we ended on what are you hoping for? I think I almost made a joke about, Donkey Kong 64 too. That's what I want. And so as long as this game has 4 million things for me to collect, I'll be happy.
Oh my God.
As long as it opens with the DK wrap.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I watched a little of the Treehouse Live gameplay, and one of the things they showed was them. So, the materials that you can pick up, he picked up a glob of mud and he threw it into a wall and it just stuck there. So it's not like everything just breaks. It's there are different materials that you're picking up with, the rock and the ground and everything. One of the things that they showed was they went over to a wall. They were at the very beginning of the game. You're in a cave underground, and he walked over to a wall and he punched a hole through that wall, and there was just a little grotto back there that was completely hidden, that you could completely miss, and get through the game and never see. So it seems like there's going to be a whole lot of hidden stuff, really encouraging you to
to destroy everything.
Yeah, to really kind of play around with the mechanic and everything. And I think had they just made a Donkey Kong 64 2, right? That would have been cool, but that would have been so close to just making another Mario Odyssey.
Sure. No, they're definitely adding something new, which is exciting. Like a whole new layer of gameplay here.
Yeah. They did show off some minecart levels. They did show off some side-scrolling levels that look like Donkey Kong Country. So it looks like they are going to vary up the gameplay. There was also some leaked art from the South Korean website of Nintendo that showed it was the main art they've already released, but in this one, Paulina is holding on to Donkey Kong's back.
Oh.
So it seems like Paulina is an element they have not revealed yet, that she's going to be part. Which that's not a big shock. They brought her back and made her a major character for Super Mario Odyssey. But it looks like she might be an element where maybe it's a bit like Yoshi's Island, where you're having to take care of her, right? You're sort of King Konging it and protecting her through a level or something. Hopefully not a bad escort mission level, but something a little more fun with that. So I think those were the two big, huge first party titles. Those were the games. I think if you were buying this to play first party Nintendo games and neither of those games appeals to you, they're probably not selling the system to you, right? Because those are the big titles.
At least not immediately.
I'd say
right.
not at launch.
Because I think those are the only two that had dates as well.
Right.
At least of the first
Of the first party,
ones.
yeah.
Well,
For
Dragon Drive, I don't think they give a date to.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I would see that feels like a launch game,
Yeah.
but I don't think it got announced as a launch game.
Let's see. Other things that they showed off first party, they in one of the biggest surprises, especially since they were already announcing a new Mario Kart game, they also announced a new Kirby Air Ride game, Kirby Air Riders. So this is a sequel to the GameCube game, which was at the time, I remember them advertising or talking about that game and being like, we wanted to make a game that you could play with one button. Because remember, the GameCube has the giant A button on it, and that was part of the pitch of the original Kirby Air Ride. And for this, they announced a sequel. We're getting Mario Kart World. So what is going to make this different, right? Are people going to buy basically two sort of mascot racing games?
Well, this is what we talked about last week when I had suggested F-Zero,
Right.
right? Was would they do those two back to back? And as soon as I saw Kirby Air Ride, I'm like, okay, well, that's not surprising that they would do that instead of F-Zero, because I think that would sell more copies.
I was going to say, well, my guess is that Air Riders will be more of a November release.
I could see that as well.
Give people
Sure.
some time.
That's
but
sometime before Christmas.
They said 2025, but they didn't give a specific date. So
yeah, but the fact that Sakurai was like, "Oh, I'm working on a secret project," and everyone assumed it was another Smash game, and it turned out to be this. Because this is one of the games that I've seen a lot of Kirby fans kind of have pivoted, where it seems like for a while people were very meh on it, and then in the last 2 years, people have really been like, man, Kirby Air Ride was so good. We need that back. So I'm really excited for this.
And Air Ride has a number, at least the original one had 3 different modes as well. So it wasn't strictly just a racer.
Yeah.
You had some variety to it as well, which is different enough than F-Zero, which is pretty much a pure racing game.
Yeah.
Well, we don't think this is an open world game. And it would probably make a lot of sense not to make this an open world game because of what that opens up as opportunities. So I could see this, you mentioned Battle Royale. I could see this really taking the F-Zero 99 route.
Yeah.
Okay, it's 99 Kirbys racing each other, right? Because there has to be a gimmick to make this stand out from
And they really love
Mario
those
Kart.
99 games.
Yeah.
The Tetris and the Mario one.
But I mean, more developed than obviously F-Zero 99, right?
Yeah,
Something to make it worth a full product and everything. But you need a gimmick other than it just being Kirby to make people buy a second mascot racer in the launch year.
Yeah, and I think with how long it's been since the original, you need to really add on what the original was as well. You can't just have the same 3 things. This has to be a pretty big jump.
Yeah.
And I think similar to what we were just talking about with Donkey Kong, right? You can just make Donkey Kong 64 too. You can't just make Kirby Air Ride 2. You need to add something to that as well. That being said, Sakurai being attached to it, I think
he's the head developer.
Yeah, instills a lot of faith that okay, there's gonna be a lot of love and energy put into this.
Yeah.
Not that it wouldn't have been otherwise, but that is his baby.
Yeah,
right?
it's Kirby is his son. He will give it all of his love, and it's gonna be cool.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, right? Because they announced that, and they also announced the Switch 2 Enhanced Edition of Kirby Forgotten Land. So, there's 2 pretty big Kirby things coming out in the first year for a new system, which is, traditionally Kirby was the thing that came out at the end of Nintendo systems. So it kind of says a lot, I think, about the repositioning of Kirby kind of in the Nintendo pantheon of characters that like he's viewed as big enough to like help launch a system.
Yeah.
That's the name you should know. He's the star of the show.
Yeah, so there's Kirby Air Riders. There is a game called Drag and Drive. I've heard it pronounced Drag X Drive, but in the trailer they pronounced it Drag and Drive. This is a game that uses the mouse functionality of the new Joy-Con controllers. So you hold one in each hand, and this is a wheelchair basketball game, and you use them like you would use your hands on the wheels of a wheelchair. So you push forward to make it go forward, push back to make it go back. You push forward your left hand to make it turn to the right, right? So like you're trying to emulate the way you would actually move in a wheelchair. I think probably most people at some point have sat down and like rolled around in a wheelchair just to like see how it works and everything. So it seems, the thing I'll say about it, it seems extremely intuitive, the control.
Yeah.
And then you're playing basketball, so you lift up one of the controllers and you toss it like you would a basketball. You know, you flick your wrist to toss the basketball. You know, my favorite description of this is that it's woke Rocket League. And I mean, you know, obviously they had to look at Rocket League because this, you know, it has slope sides to the gameplay field so that you're actually like going up and ramping off of it and everything. Yeah. So there's definitely some Rocket League aesthetics going on here. I just don't know how much of a game this is. Like, you know, I compare it to Rocket League, right? And Rocket League obviously has a huge community around it and everything. It's a game that I go back and play with friends occasionally. But Rocket League, you know, like, there's not much of a single player mode, right? There's not much to do to that game other than to play it competitively against people.
I think that was one of the surprising things about this is, and might sound odd because in some ways I think it's wrong, but it didn't feel like it had a ton of personality in the sense of like,
sure,
there is no characterization to like the models.
Yeah.
This isn't ARMS or Splatoon.
And I think that's why it was surprising in the sense of like, I figured if you were going to do this, again, you could make some kind of, you know, single player, or at least something, you know, a character that like the player's going to identify with and like sort of like place themselves like into that. And it didn't really feel like that.
These characters were not characters. They were just models.
Yeah. And that's where I guess I wonder, like, how is this more than just a
tech demo?
Yeah. A tech demo or like a Mario Party mini game. Right? Like an extended Mario Party mini game. And I don't want that to come off as like, you know, negative or mean or anything like that, because I'm sure it's really well made. But
the game that came out with the Switch, that was supposed to show off the mechanics.
1-2 Switch.
Yes. That was a horrible game.
Yeah.
Like it was bad, and really it was just to show off the new aspects of the console. And so maybe I hate that might be what this is, but maybe it is.
Oh no, because we have a different game for that for the Switch too.
Oh,
we have Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour for $10.
Right. But I mean, in terms of like using the mechanic in a game itself.
I will say, I feel like we got a little baited in when it first got shown, because it looked like they were showing off a DJ game. And and I was like, that would be also very sick.
What, you didn't have DJ, what is it?
DJ Hero?
Well, that's why I thought, like, people were like, is it DJ Hero 2? But I don't know how much I see myself using this particular mechanic. Maybe that's just because I played my original Switch more in handheld mode.
Yeah,
and
I don't see myself using it at all. Hardly.
And so I don't know. It was cool to see how it would be used, because even just you describing it, I'm like, those are the Katamari controls. Give me a Katamari game with my mouse controls. And so like, I enjoyed seeing how it would work. I don't know how many games could utilize it that I am going to necessarily like be like, that is one that I will definitely get. But it was cool to see how it will work.
Well, even my Switch, like when I'm not playing in handheld mode, and I agree that's where I play most of my Switch, I'm playing it on a TV without like a table in front of me.
Yes.
Right? Like I have a coffee table, and I guess I could pull it up against me and lean forward, but like that's not how I play video games.
That's what I was just thinking as well. I was just thinking about like, yeah, you're like
It's
kind
like
of
hunched
over, or like you're like kneeling in front of the TV so that like, or in front of your table to like give yourself that space. So
Or you can get like the TV dinner tray and
that's like I part of me
One
wonders
of those laptop tables.
that part of me
That's what
wonders
I
if that's
think
something that Nintendo is going to sell, is one of those like things that has like the cushion that you put on your lap, and you can like, so you can still like sit back on your couch and play this, so that, because otherwise, that's going to not feel great, like not comfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, like this looks really neat. I sort of think like we were talking about the Nintendo Switch 2 welcome tour. This almost feels like something that should be part of that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like if you're going to sell that and you're going to try to justify the $10 price, and we'll talk about it here in a second, then that feels like the way to justify it. Like this on its own, and we don't know what the price for this is. I assume this is not a full $70 game.
This to me feels like I could see it selling for maybe 30.
Yeah.
I don't know if you could really go higher than that number.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo tries, but
Yeah.
unless there's unless that's another thing where like what we saw is not the full game.
Yeah.
You know, we only got like a little snippet.
I'll say that would have to be like 5% of the game.
Yeah. Like if there's a lot more to it, then yeah, sure. Like great. I'll be excited to see it. But if that's it in its entirety, this feels like a $20 to $30 game at most.
Yeah.
I could even see if they expanded this to do more like if this was more of a wheelchair Olympics game.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. And there was like multiple, like not even mini games, but like game. I'm thinking something like the summer and winter games collections that NX used to do. Like there's multiple different games that you can do with a wheelchair. Right. And this is a way to be like, hey, this can like sort of bring people together, and this is like helping you understand, you know, how people with different abilities like interact in sport and stuff. And that's really cool and fun. Like when I call it woke Rocket League, there's a little tongue in cheek because like I sort of think like that's going to end up on Fox News at some point.
Well, that's how I saw it being described in some of the chats, and I was like, oh, because I cannot tell. I feel like you're probably not joking.
Yeah.
I know what your tone is, but like when I see other people say it, I'm like,
But like I actually think it's kind of cool to make a wheelchair basketball.
I think
sure,
it's incredible, and I'm like, of course you make a wheelchair sport game and none of they're just generic models. There's no real characters at all.
Yeah.
They're
I mean,
not full human
that was
beings.
partially our critique of like the Princess Peach Showtime. Is like, we love this idea. Why did you not do more?
Yeah.
the one thing that you do see. So like, there's this like court, I guess you would call it, that you're playing basketball on. But like outside of the court, there was like these ramps and rails that looked like
Tony Hawk.
Yeah, like
Tony Hawk.
characters are like grinding on and stuff like that. So like if that's also part of the game, or like you can do that while your friends are playing basketball, and this functions almost as like a what is the
Like a playground or something.
you know, like so many people can like load into it, and you're just like hanging out in this space.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of whatever that like VR chat game that you can like sort of load into that world and just like hang out with people. And it might just be called VR chat.
There is one called just VR chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it's something like that where you're like loaded in and you're not like, it's people playing around on a playground more than just like you're, you know, as compared to what Rocket League is.
Right.
Yeah.
I could see that again. There's more intrigue in that.
Yeah.
But
they
if
also
it's-
showed a track around the outside.
Okay, yeah.
And they showed people like on wheelchairs going around that track. So it does feel like maybe there's more to this than we're seeing right now. Though I do agree the static of it is kind of boring.
Yeah.
Like if
like
this
at
was
least let me personalize my character.
Well, like, if it was just more of the like sort of cartoony Nintendo style, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I would think it maybe this would annoy people, but like if this were the F-Zero characters,
Oh, sure.
right? Like that's kind of a fun way to get some characters that you already have that there's an anime and comic books for, like get them involved in doing something and get people more familiar with those characters, right? Like, just doing something like that would, or use the ARMS characters, right? Because we're probably not getting an ARMS 2. So
Sure.
use those characters. Let's see. We also, as we mentioned, there was Nintendo Switch 2 welcome tour. So this
Nintendo looked at Astrobot and said, "Hey, can I copy your homework? Sure, but don't make it too obvious." And then they just did crap.
Well, that feels real generous to compare this to Astrobot based
Yeah.
on what
It
we
wants
saw.
to be
Based on
Astrobot.
what we saw.
Astro's Playroom is an amazing game. For that to get packed in on every PlayStation 5.
For
Like-
free. I
Yeah.
didn't have to pay $10 for it.
Yeah. And like this looks like the instruction manual. Like one of the things they showed is you can figure out, they'll show you how the magnets work and where they're located on the Joy-Cons. And I was like, okay, cool. And when look, I think everybody had the same reaction. When you're watching that Switch Direct and they're showcasing this, you're like, oh, this is cool. This is going to be packed in like Astro's Playroom.
Yeah.
This is really neat. And they showed like a little putt-putt game where you're like turning and moving the Joy-Con and
Yeah.
like swinging it to hit. And I was like, okay, cool. It's going to get packed in. It's not amazing, but it's cool. And then they said it was a paid download. And I watched a couple of streams of different people like watching this live. And every time they were like, what? Like you could just
Yeah.
see people lose their minds when they said it was paid.
Yep.
No, I was like, oh yeah, like I'll probably play this for like 15 minutes. I'll check
Yeah.
it out. And then they're like $10. I'm like, excuse me?
And they've shown off a little bit more. So like one of the tech demos is trying to showcase, because the Switch 2 can do 4K, they take the original Super Mario Brothers and they show that the entire first level, World 1-1 of the original Super Mario Brothers, can fit on a 4K television screen in its original resolution. And so basically you start off with just the first screen and it's over on the far left side of the television and the entire rest of the screen is black. And as you move to the right, it reveals, but it keeps the entire level on the screen at the same time.
Wow.
And it's a really cool tech
That's
demo, but it's a really cool tech demo I'll play exactly once and
Yeah.
never again.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so at $10, I mean, again, Nintendo has said there's more to this than people have seen so far,
Yeah, I don't know that I can believe him on that one.
but there has to be a lot more to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like you mentioned 1-2 Switch, but at least 1-2 Switch felt like a game they were trying to make a full game
Yeah.
out of.
Yeah.
Like,
It was just bad.
I agree.
That was the one that that I saw everybody say was like, this is the same company that included Wii Sports. That's one of the
Right.
best games of
Yeah.
all time.
Agreed.
Which is
Yeah.
in many ways just a tech demo, but like that's a full game that you
Yes.
could get like literal countless hours
I
of
played so much
entertainment
bowling.
out of, whether you're alone or with, friends or family. And for this, I think that's, having heard that multiple times now, of there's more that we haven't seen. Like,
Right.
well, then what are you doing?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I think I get you wanted to show off all of these third-party games. That's not what I care about, though. Like, at the end of the day, great. I'm glad. I'm skipping ahead a little bit. I'm glad that like Elden Ring and Borderlands are coming to Switch. Awesome. I don't care about that. Show me what you are doing.
Yeah. Like, you can only tell me so many times, like, oh, there's more you haven't seen. And I'm like, well, you got to give me some reason to justify the price tag.
Or you better be announcing another direct,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a general direct, like soon.
Yeah.
And so maybe there'll be I mean, I know we're getting the Mario Kart one, but I almost wonder if we'll get another full or at least half direct before the actual launch.
Yeah.
And we must.
Well, I wonder if just for third-party software. Like even if there wasn't something for the first party games, just for third party software. But like I feel like before Donkey Kong comes out, they'll have to show more of Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
Because they haven't shown enough yet to, I think, justify at least some people buying that game. So they'll have to do some more with that, at least a separate trailer. But yeah, no, I mean, like, I think the problem is this console generation, we got Astro's Playroom. And Astro's Playroom is like an amazing game, and it leads to Astrobot, which is like, was my game of the year last year, and what I think third on our like combined list.
That sounds right.
And that game is like so amazing, and you laid the groundwork for it, and to see Nintendo do this and like, well, we're going to charge you $10 for this thing that doesn't look anywhere near as good.
Yeah.
Feels like, okay, Nintendo, you're really twisting that knife.
Yeah.
Like when we talk about the $450 to $500 price, the problem with that comes when you're charging $10 for this,
Yes.
$80
Yeah.
for Mario Kart. Like it's not the price of the system that bothers me, it's the price of the software at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you can spend $450 and buy everything that we know, do nothing with it, right? Like $450 gets you a machine that can do nothing.
Yeah.
You have to pay more money to be able to do something with it. And I think that's where it's like the fact that it seemed, at least, even if this was in there, I could be like, okay, like at least at $450, you can do something
Yeah.
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
You unpack and there's something to do.
Yeah, like immediately. But the fact that you have to have spent more money, whether that be on a Nintendo Switch Online or one of these other games,
Right.
even if it's only $10, feels a little bad.
Yeah. That just feels greedy.
Yeah. So the other first-party game that they've shown off was Hyrule Warriors: Age of Imprisonment. So Mario talked about playing the original Hyrule Warriors. This is yet another Hyrule Warriors game. This one is a prequel to Tears of the Kingdom. So chronology-wise, where it's taking place in the very made-up Zelda timeline that like sort of matters.
Craziest timelines of all time.
At least with Breath of the Wild, like Breath and Tears can have their own like
Right.
chronological order. All the other ones, you're just making it up at
So
this point.
this is fitting in with that and supposedly telling some story there. It does showcase Zelda as the main character rather than Link. So there's something appealing about that, right? Because we got Echoes of Wisdom last year with Zelda as the main character. Yeah, I mean, this is a Musou game. This is one of those, there's 200 enemies on screen and you're just slashing through all of them. These games, I think, are kind of fun, but once you've played one of them, you've played them all.
This wasn't a very surprising announcement. Like when I first saw it, I was like, oh, Koei Tecmo. And then when I saw it was Zelda, I was like, okay, this is the next one. They did it with Age of Calamity to tell the prequel before Breath of the Wild. It only makes sense that they would make one for Tears of the Kingdom as well, which is great. I mean, again, there are a lot of people that love these games, and I like Zelda enough that I would probably consider buying, this after playing the other two. So cool. It's kind of how I feel about it.
I think this is also a game that shows off the power of the system because
Sure.
you're putting a lot of characters on screen at once. Like you can do it with a stable frame rate in this case. So I think there's some justification.
And I want to say they said this is November or also late 2025.
Yeah, I think they maybe said fall 2025, something in there. But yeah, this will be sometime this year. So, when you start looking at it, there are 5 first-party games, let's not include Welcome Tour, that they've announced so far. So if you start trying to space those out, June, August, September, October, November, that's, they're putting one of those out a month. That sort of kind of fills out the year for them.
Yeah.
Which is what Nintendo was doing with the Switch one. They were trying to put out one first-party game a month. However, they also showed off their Switch 2 editions. So the Switch 2 editions are Switch 1 games that are going to get some sort of update. So we talked about backwards compatibility. They released a list of games that work in backwards compatibility. Pretty much all the first-party games work fine. There are some issues with third-party games, particularly games that are emulated. So like your old classic collections, apparently because the Switch 1 playing on the Switch 2 will be via emulation, that's apparently causing some hiccups. That can be fixed over time with patches and different things. But these games, the Switch 2 editions, are Switch 1 games that are going to get upgraded in some fashion. So they aren't just running the same old game. They're going to get improvements in frame rate, improvements in resolution, and in some cases, additional content, or otherwise improved graphics. So the big ones were Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. They are getting upgraded resolutions, upgraded frame rates. They are also getting an app that works with the Nintendo app on your cell phone that you can use, sort of like Microsoft Glass, where you can like pull up a map and it will give you GPS directions to where you want to go.
See, I laugh, but actually that does make the games more appealing to me because they're too overwhelming for me to want to play right now. So I laugh and
one of the, I thought that the coolest thing they showed off was the ability when you build something in Tears of the Kingdom to export a QR code for that so that you can share that with somebody else so they can import, like, you know, if you've been watching some of the online videos, people are building like mechs and different things. Yeah. So like you can now export that and pull that into your game via QR code. And I thought that looked really cool. But mostly these are getting what looks like improved frame rates. They showed some of the wood sections in the games running at a stable 60 frames a second, it appeared. If you've played those Zelda games, you know one of the big problems is the frame rate in them. So this does seem like a pretty nice improvement. They're going to sell those those upgrades for $10 a piece. So if you already own the games, it'll be $10. If you want to buy the all-inclusive Switch 2 versions, it'll be, you know, the price plus $10. So $70 for Breath of the Wild, $80 for Tears of the Kingdom. They also showed off Super Mario Party Jamboree will be getting a Switch 2 edition that includes a new mode called Jamboree TV. Alicia, you mentioned this earlier with the USB-C camera.
Yep.
This adds basically some iToy games into Super Mario Party Jamboree. So they showed ones where you're like balancing Goombas on your head in the game and everything. They also showed mini games where you're controlling it with like your voice, telling a car to drive or to stop and that sort of thing. I thought this looked really kind of cool and neat, but it seems to be implied that this will be a $20 add-on. So if you already own Super Mario Party Jamboree, it's $20 on top of what you've already paid. If you want to buy the Switch 2 version, like all in one package, it would be $80. So, you know, we said that Mario Kart World is the only $80 game. Well, not technically. So they have some other games. But we should note this is with an expansion, right? Like this is not... Yeah. Mario Party Jamboree was a full game at $60, right? So this is an expansion to the game. We mentioned this a little earlier. Kirby and the Forgotten Land is also getting an expansion called Star Cross World. That's in addition to updated graphics.
I'll say this looks like a full like DLC, additional storylines, all that. I deliberately did not watch the Treehouse play. I did watch, because outside of the Direct, they then released a longer trailer for it, and Bandana Waddle Dee has a new hat, and I'm like
Malibu Stacy?
But I said I'm deliberately not watching anything more than that 2.5 minute trailer, because even that already I'm like there are some things coming back. It looks like they're bringing back things from Star Allies. It looks so good, and I am so excited.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about this, that so Kirby and the Forgotten Land is the best-selling Kirby game ever for Nintendo. And so you take that game and you essentially are re-releasing it. This is very similar to what they did with the Wii U to Switch games. Mm-hmm. So we get Super Mario 3D World re-released onto the Switch with the addition of Bowser's new Bowser's Fury, yeah, not Bowser's New Fury, just Bowser's Fury. And so this is very similar, right? This is a way to re-release these games. It's a way to, like, early on in the Switch 2's lifespan, where people are looking for something to play that takes advantage of the new hardware. This is a really good way to get people who maybe skip Kirby and the Forgotten Land to say, oh, I really want a Switch 2 game. Here's one that's, enhanced for the Switch 2 and it has this additional content and everything. Why don't I just buy this? Mm-hmm. And I think it's smart from a sales perspective.
Yeah.
And I think it's giving fans more of what they want, more of that game.
Absolutely.
I don't know. It's difficult, right, to like justify $80, like right now, like to somebody to pay that.
Is this one a $20 add-on or?
Yeah, it appears to be.
Okay.
I don't necessarily mind a $20 add-on, because if this were just DLC, it would probably be.
Yeah.
Like I could see.
I was gonna say the Scarlet and Violet DLC was like 30 or 35 or something like that. So thinking of it as DLC, that doesn't bother me too much.
I don't think it's bad as DLC. I think it's rougher when you're thinking of buying this brand new at $80.
Yeah,
sure,
that's fair.
Let's see. They showed off Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. This is the least shocking of all of these announcements, I think. The big thing for it was enhanced graphics, and they also showed off 2 different graphics modes, one that's running in 4K 60 frames a second, and one that's running in 1080p at 120 frames a second. I was actually shocked that Nintendo was showcasing a game running at 120 frames a second for this show.
And I think the other thing is you can use like mouse controls.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that's something, right? Like, we have not gotten a release date for that game. That game is probably not coming before the Switch 2 release. People will just be buying this as a Switch 2 game.
Yeah.
This is the first way people will play this game in a lot of cases.
That's kind of where I'm at. I was just like, I would think I would probably just wait to get a Switch 2 before I were to buy this. That's at least how I mostly feel about it.
Yeah. I think particularly when that upgraded graphics modes, playing that game, which already looks amazing at 4K 60, is like, if you have the technology to do that, if you have a 4K TV, that'd be a really amazing way to experience it.
Even though I assume it will probably be $80.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
No, but that's kind of where, Pokemon Legends ZA too. I'm like, why would I get it on Switch 1 when Switch 2 is going to come out first?
Yeah, and that is the next game, Pokemon Legends ZA. They also showed off a Switch 2 edition. There was, I think, some better draw distance in it, that obviously better frame rate. I think that's particularly a big sales point, because those Pokemon games on the Switch have been plagued with really bad frame rates.
Yeah.
You're playing a PowerPoint at some moments of those games.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like a version that has a better frame rate seems like the better way to play those games. I mean, the Pokemon fans have been very vocal about their outrage over
Oh,
this.
yeah.
They still bought the game in tens of millions of quantity, but
Yep.
they complained about it the entire time they were putting down their money.
Yep.
They also showed off a bunch of other games that will get updates: ARMS, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, Super Mario Odyssey. These all seem to be free updates. Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classic, Zelda, Link's Awakening, and Echoes of Wisdom. That's a big one. Both of those games are gorgeous, but suffer from really bad frame rates. Mm-hmm. Particularly Echoes of Wisdom at moments can really drag down to that sort of PowerPoint frame rate. Game Builder Garage is maybe one of the more surprising ones. That seemed like a thing that Nintendo had kind of forgotten about, so seeing them put out an update for it. New Super Mario Brothers U Deluxe, because man, a lot of people bought that game for the Switch. And Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which seemed like a very obvious one to do there. I assume that will mostly be addressed to frame rate.
Yeah.
Man, I hope so.
If you are not getting that game running at least a stable 30, and ideally, I think you should be able to get it to run at 60. But like, if you're not doing that, like, what are you even doing?
If Metroid Prime 4 can run at 1080, 120 frames a second, at some point it's on the Pokemon Company to figure it, whatever.
Well, it's been on the Pokemon Company since Sword and Shield.
I mean, those Pokemon games are not as good looking as other Nintendo games, right? Like, so.
I think the other one probably worth mentioning, if I remember correctly, is that Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom would be free updates with a Nintendo Switch Online.
Yes, that's true. And Big Brain Academy. Let's not leave it out.
Oh, sure.
I've not thought about that game since the DS years.
I don't even know what are you updating there? Like, to have it run at 120 frames a second?
Yeah, frame rate. All those intense sequences of Big Brain Academy. They're updating, to keep up with the science. That's, since, 8 years.
I mean, maybe
Christina's just shaking her head right now.
maybe they're adding a game share mode like they did with Clubhouse.
I could also see that just being a mouse. A
Yeah.
mouse
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
But
I've never played it. I don't know if you have to like control a cursor at any point. Doing that with a control stick can be really annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have not played this one. Like, I mean, I played the ODS brain training.
Age.
Yeah. So that does it for all the like first party software. Then we have the third party games. The big third party game was they announced a new game from Software called the Dusk Bloods. And this is an exclusive From Software game for the Switch 2.
That's wild. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, it's a multiplayer game, and I agree, it's completely wild.
This will sell Nintendo Switches. People love that company, and I know there were a lot of people freaking out, thinking that this was like Bloodborne 2, that Nintendo sniped Bloodborne 2 from PlayStation. And
I don't think they can, because I think Sony owns that IP.
I don't think they can either, but I understand people
The
freaking out
live chat
thinking
people.
about it.
I mean, it looks like Bloodborne.
It is using very similar aesthetics to it.
Yeah.
Before they revealed From Software, and even after that, a lot of people I was watching were like, "Is this a new Castlevania?"
I thought Castlevania at first.
And like From Software making a new Castlevania would make a lot of sense.
Sure. I think this was a pretty wild announcement. I think this was 2026 was the at least the year that we got.
Yeah.
But I mean, good on Nintendo. They know what companies are popping, and they said, "Hey, we want you on our system."
Along with that, they also announced that Elden Ring will come out at launch. I feel like this was a big coup for them as well. Like, you're getting Elden Ring, that game, the fans are fanatical about it.
Yeah.
That was a game that could not be played on the original Switch. Now it can. That was a game that came out on the PlayStation 4, so it should run decently well, theoretically, on the Switch 2.
Do we know if any third-party games will be getting Switch 2 editions? Did they announce anything?
I don't believe so. I don't believe they announced it, is what I mean. I don't believe that happened.
Because I know another one that I think could probably use it would be The Witcher 3.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But I don't know if you would get a Switch 2 edition, or if it's just, hey, we're re-releasing this for the Switch 2.
Yeah.
They announced a bunch of other third-party software. We'll just run through this real quick, and then if we want to talk about any of these, Hades 2, Split Fiction, Borderlands 4, Cyberpunk 2077, Street Fighter 6, Hitman World of Assassination. That's the collection that groups all three of the new Hitman open sort of games. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4, Civilization 7, Hogwarts Legacy. So that is an entirely new version of Hogwarts Legacy. They did put out a version for the Switch. That version is pretty ugly looking. This one looked much more like what you saw on the PlayStation and Xbox. Project 007, that's from the Hitman creators. They just put a brief teaser for that, but it was kind of a big announcement to say it is coming to Switch 2. Bravely Default HD remaster. I thought that looked pretty cool. That was originally a DS game.
Yeah.
And so they are doing an HD remaster. It's not a remake, but up-resing the graphics and everything.
I will continue to take DS ports because hopefully that will continue to encourage Nintendo to do something with their DS games and potentially port them in the future. Figure out something to do with them at least.
Yeah, I'm surprised we haven't heard anything about that Metroid 2 remake getting ported over. Deltarune, which included the announcement of the 2 new chapters. Is that correct, Alicia?
Yes. I love Toby Fox. We knew he would do it. He made a fool of everyone with Deltarune Tomorrow. Everyone who said Deltarune Tomorrow on April Fool's Day turned out to be right. But yeah, this was the first announcement of chapters 3 and 4, and it's all 3 and 4 are releasing everywhere on Switch 2 launch day.
I think they said $30.
25.
Okay.
25 for, and it's the only time you'll ever pay for the game. The future chapters will all be free updates.
And how many total chapters?
7.
7. Okay.
And yeah, the blow up from Undertale and Deltarune fans, because people were not expecting the full reveal to be in the Switch 2 Direct. So watching Undertale and Deltarune fans, and then the fact that later there was a 3-second teaser for Hollow Knight Silk Song, and everyone's like, Silk Song, you'll have your chance next.
Yeah, I left that off the list. They did show that, and they did put a date of 2025 on Hollow Knight Silk Song. So,
maybe.
A lot of people thought that would be a launch game. That would be a major reveal at this. They would be like, hey, this is coming to Switch 2 exclusively at launch. It'll come to other systems, obviously, at some point. That did not happen.
Nope.
But
2 seconds.
A 2025 release date, that's kind of them staking out something, I suppose.
Yeah.
Let's see. They said Madden NFL is coming. That's kind of a big thing because Madden NFL did not come to the first Switch. That is a big franchise, obviously. And one wonders, does that also mean that the NCAA football game might come eventually?
I thought it was already announced. I thought that was part of the announcement, but I think it was FC was
announced.
Included.
Yeah.
And then I know it was both of the 2Ks, NBA 2K and WWE 2K as well.
Right. But those had been on Switch 1, so those weren't those weren't necessarily huge news.
Sure.
Right. But yeah, your major sports franchises. I would assume that the show would come at some point as well, because that was part of the deal that Sony would have to port it over to other systems. With a more powerful Switch 2, that makes a whole lot of sense that the show would come eventually. And then Yakuza 0, that's something labeled a director's cut. Do you know what's new about that, if anything?
I believe they said there would be new cutscenes, new not released before, story beats and stuff like that.
Okay, and I wonder if how that will come to other versions. Will the PC version get that as a free update, or will that be an upgrade? Or
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. The other big one on third-party games that I didn't get to see it originally because of the lag, but Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade.
Right. Oh, right, right.
And they teased that future remake verse content
That's
will
right.
come.
And Survival Kids, too.
Yeah.
That's the first time since I think the original Game Boy. That was a Game Boy. I didn't think it was a Game Boy Color game. I think it was just an original Game Boy game. So, and it looks completely different from what the original Game Boy game was, but that was
we got a real good look at it.
That was one that I was like,
because
wow,
I was stuck
okay.
on it for
Yeah.
The stream did freeze up on that. The Final Fantasy VII, I think, is a big one.
That's a big one for me on
And that we had talked about that. I think
we expected
that. At
it.
least remake. Rebirth, we'll see. But
Well, they said to expect future remake verse content. So Rebirth isn't announced for it yet, but I imagine Rebirth will come.
and I believe this was Intergrade. It comes with the Intergrade
Yes.
DLC or whatever you want to call that.
Oh, I think we get Rebirth and whatever the third chapter is titled.
I'm pretty confident that we will.
I have to imagine they'll try and figure out how to get those on there.
Last week I said Kingdom Hearts. I'd still be shocked if we don't get Kingdom Hearts. That
agreed.
complete package of the first 3 games released at some point.
Any of those franchises that people kind of just go bananas for.
Yeah.
I mean, you will
Go
sell.
Bonanza, you could say.
You could. I won't, but you could.
People are more corny than I. Could say that.
Of this list, I think the one that was most intriguing was this new 007 game made by the Hitman people. I think like that could probably be pretty cool.
I mean, I think it's easy to dismiss this list and see, okay, it's a lot of re-releases: Cyberpunk, Street Fighter, Hitman, Hogwarts. But then I also think you have to consider that there's a lot of people, their only gaming system, right, is a Switch. So they've missed out on these games.
Yeah.
And releasing these games, Elden Ring as well, releasing these games, and most of these are coming out at launch or very soon after in the first year. Re-releasing these games, I think they will sell pretty well
Oh my gosh,
on the
yeah.
Switch too. And, so I think it's smart. And I think it also says something that the Switch 2 is getting a lot of third-party support. Like a lot of these companies are looking at it as, hey, we think this is worth taking the time to port over these games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know I complained about it earlier, but as I was watching the direct and I was seeing all the third-party games, I was like, I mean, that is really great news. I would love to see more from Nintendo proper, but seeing all of these like big games coming to Switch 2,
Yeah.
again, fosters a lot of like positive feelings of like, okay, they're going to get a lot of support, not just from like, the Switch got all of the indie games, which was great, but to see that it's also going to get like the big ones as well.
The
is
AAA
exciting to see.
games,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It finally has enough power to have some of these.
Yeah.
They tried with,
Yeah.
like I said, like The Witcher, but it didn't necessarily deliver fully. And so I think, these are good gets for Nintendo.
I've got a friend, her only game system is a Switch, right? And one of her things is constant frustration because there's lots of games on PlayStation that she would like to play,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, so
Me.
well,
You all have a friend. I'm the same way.
well, I wasn't talking about Alicia specifically, but like
Oh, I
Alicia
thought he was
included.
going to be like, friend. I don't know.
Colleague.
No, like there's so many
Let's not overstate this.
there's so many games that are on like PlayStation or Steam or whatever that I'm like, that looks fun.
And they are Alicia.
And I know and I want to play them. And so I'm like, this makes me happy.
Well, and I wonder if, we've talked a lot about PlayStation doing some of these ports, if we would see something like Spider-Man or Miles Morales at some point come to this as well.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I don't know. Like
Yeah.
Spider-Man's so valuable for them. I
Yeah.
mean, they have put it on PC, right? Like, and so maybe because that is an older game at this point,
They got to recoup that $200 million somehow.
right?
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair.
I mean,
I forgot about Spider-Man 2 until this very second. The original one, maybe. that game is...
yeah,
Because I was
that
also
old at this
thinking
it was a PlayStation 4 game.
Yeah.
the second one was the release for PlayStation 5, and so I don't know how it would be on Switch.
Yeah.
Even the new one.
I think, like I said, the original one, and probably Miles Morales, because that was
Yes.
also on PlayStation 4, almost
sure.
assuredly.
Well, Miles Morales, when we get the next Spider-Verse movie, there'll be a lot of people.
Right.
Potentially, yeah.
Like that was one of the speculations I had when we were doing our predictions, was that we might see something from Microsoft at this show. We saw nothing from Microsoft. We saw nothing from Sony, which makes me think, right? Those are going to be announcements. We know something from Microsoft is coming to this system.
Yeah.
Microsoft will port something. Like, I mean, the rumor has been the Master Chief Collection, but like they just ported Forza to the PlayStation. Forza would make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I wonder if something like even something if like Starfield could run on Switch.
Yeah, I mean, Starfield would make a lot of sense.
You know, I could potentially see if Starfield could run on the Series S. Is that the smaller one?
Yes.
You know, I wonder, like I said, in terms of power, how those two would compare.
And I think, like, if you're Microsoft, it's so much easier to justify putting your games onto Switch than it is onto PlayStation, because you can make the argument, hey, play it on Switch, but if you want the definitive experience, play it on Series X.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, if you want all the bells and whistles and everything. And so, you know, like, I think that fits easier than even putting the games onto PlayStation.
It's less of a competition, right?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
if Microsoft and PlayStation are like direct rivals with one another in terms of like they're fighting for the same eyes,
Yes.
Yeah.
whereas Nintendo is to some extent yes, but not quite.
Yeah.
But it's
right?
like when I think of the rivalries historically, it's PlayStation versus Xbox and Nintendo versus Sega.
Sure.
Like it's like you said, it's
Nintendo won that.
yeah. I said historically, didn't I? But it's not that same level of like, yeah, it feels more reasonable for them to release on Nintendo console.
If anything, it makes sense that like they put stuff on the Switch for like future Xbox, you know, because like
Right.
Switch is for usually younger kids, and then they like this game that's on Xbox, so when they get old enough and want a bigger system, right?
Sure.
Right. You know, I actually, that you, Alicia, saying that made me think, like, it's kind of surprising. Here's the Switch 2 launch, right? And we do get one game from Sega in Yakuza, but look, we didn't hear anything about Sonic.
Oh no, Sega clapped back on their social media accounts. I sent it into the group chat.
Right.
They were like, hey, like what a great day for racing games. By the way, if you want a racing game you can play across all platforms with your friends.
Right, but I'm really surprised we didn't get something like, because
Sonic-y.
this is their target demographic,
Yes.
I feel like, with Sonic specifically. And, you know, so we did get 2 Point Museum, we did get Yakuza, those are Sega published games.
It could be that though, of like our big game is a racing game. Your
Yeah.
racing game can
Right.
kick rocks.
Yeah.
You know, we'll put it on our system, but we're not going to advertise it.
So that's a little interesting and everything. Like, not in a bad way. I just, like, I kind of would have expected Sega to be there.
Yeah.
They've had a good working relationship with Nintendo in recent years. So, okay. So that does with third-party games. The last big announcement, and we had kind of talked about this as a possibility, but like, I still feel like this was one of the bigger kind of surprises of this Direct. They announced that GameCube games are coming to Nintendo Switch Online. And I will say,
I think this is the expansion pass.
yes.
Yes.
So the $50 tier, not the $20 tier. The one that already gets you access to N64 games. I will say about this that, like, I feel like it is, if we're talking about not having a ton of software at launch, the fact that they're launching this day one with the Switch 2, you know, the GameCube is like the era of the modern console, I feel like. N64 very much feels super retro.
Yeah.
Like, when you go back and play those games, right, for a variety of reasons. Graphics, yes, but like also they hadn't quite figured out like 3D camera mechanics super well yet.
Also, just the gigantic cartridges
Right.
for the games.
And I feel like GameCube is the era where, like, you can go back and play a GameCube game today and it still feels very modern. The controls don't feel completely outdated and odd to adapt to. The games are of the larger size that we expect games to be these days. So, like, I feel like at launch, if you have this expansion pass, like, you're getting 3 full games to play on launch day.
Yeah, this might bump me up to the expansion version of Switch Online.
Yeah.
Me as well. And, like, I can emulate these on my computer, but, like, being able to play them with no, like, hoops to jump through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like there's something very appealing about that.
I will be, because GameCube was when I got into college, I think, maybe a little before. And so I never had a GameCube and didn't play any of the games.
That was an era where we had, we mentioned earlier, you have one for the family. We had a PlayStation 2. That was it. No Xbox, no GameCube.
Right. Yeah.
6 years later, we got a Wii, but I missed out on all these GameCube games, and there's some heavy hitters that they're already revealing here that I'm like,
yeah,
okay.
So they revealed quite a few games. 3 of these will come at launch. So The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker, Soul Calibur 2. We should note that Soul Calibur 2 is the one that includes Link as a playable character, and F-Zero GX. So no, I mean, as soon as they announced this, like you knew you weren't getting an F-Zero game announced anytime soon. So all 3 of those will be day one launch games, but they also showed off several other games. They have always done this when they introduce a new system, and basically it's like, hey, over the next year, we'll probably add these games one a month or so. But they showed off Super Mario Sunshine, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, Super Mario Strikers, that is the soccer game, Chibi Robo, Luigi's Mansion, and Pokemon Coliseum.
And Pokemon, both of the Pokemon XD games, the original and Gale of Darkness.
Okay.
I do love that they showed off Coliseum as one of the upcoming ones, because I think back on the Pokemon Direct and how, that was their big, like, oh, we're releasing it's not Coliseum because it doesn't have the mini games, and everyone's like, y'all, the mini games are the most fun.
Yeah.
So I love that Coliseum is here. I'm like,
Yeah, and I wonder, like, will they do, since these are are these the first Pokemon games they've put on Nintendo Switch Online?
I think Stadium.
yeah.
Okay.
I think Stadium 1 and Stadium 2 are on Switch Online.
Yeah.
So with Stadium, do they have where that can connect to the Pokemon Bank?
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah, I haven't
No
played
clue.
them. I just have seen them.
My assumption would be no, because those came out before that was a thing.
Yeah.
Right, but they do some work on these classics. Like they make them where they can like play online. So I kind of wonder about that. I mean, that's like a cool feature, right? For Soul Calibur 2, you'll be able to play that online
Yeah.
via this. So there is an added feature there.
Oh, I'm sure you can play them online. I just don't know if they connect to whatever the
Right.
cloud bank thing is.
Yeah. That's what,
Pokemon Home.
is it Pokemon Home is what it's called now? Okay.
I think so.
Because like those games, right? Like that was a big part of them, particularly like I feel like Coliseum, right? Because it was importing your Game Boy Pokemon and just battle them against each other. So like, is that game as much fun if you can't do that?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what they do. I'm excited.
I think the only thing that surprised me was that there was only 3 at launch.
Sure.
I mean, they're a good 3.
Yeah.
But I would have assumed Sunshine would have been like
Yeah.
we'll just give you Sunshine.
Because it gives you a Mario game at launch.
Sure,
Yes.
it gives you a Mario game. Obviously, they already put it in the 3D collection.
It's also more of like a kids game
Yeah.
out of
Yeah.
all of the other ones.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I don't really. I mean, Wind Waker definitely is very cartoony in its
Fair,
aesthetic,
yeah,
but
yeah.
like Zelda games are not just something I think you can give to a 6 or a 7-year-old and like,
Yeah.
here, figure it out. Like those take a little bit more than
Yeah.
that, but
It's Nintendo's more kind of adult games, right? Just because of the complexity of a Zelda game.
so I think that was my only surprise. But I imagine we would probably get Sunshine shortly after. That, I guess Sunshine or Luigi's Mansion would be my assumption.
Yeah.
I feel
I
like
would-
Sunshine will. I mean, maybe this is just me, but I feel like we should get Sunshine during the summer and Luigi's Mansion in October.
That would probably make sense, but
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that
Why are you laughing
I don't
at
know.
me?
It was just
It makes sense.
Yes, it does.
yeah, I think I missed the joke.
It was more of just like a Alicia.
I agree.
is.
I do think it is a good idea. Sunshine is a summer game, and Luigi's Mansion could be your October release. Yeah, I could see it.
You know, in the Switch 2 editions, we did not get an update for Luigi's Mansion 3, which was a huge seller on the Switch, and it's one of the best looking games on the Switch. So that seeing Luigi's Mansion here just kind of reminded me of that. But yeah, I mean, you know, Luigi's Mansion was a launch game for the GameCube. People forget Sunshine came like much later.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think I could see that, like putting one of the two of those in this launch.
I'm excited about Chibi Robo. I had a GameCube. I loved my GameCube. That is not one that I had, but I know that it's pretty highly regarded.
Chibi Robo and the Fire Emblem game, if you want to buy used copies of those now, they are several $100s.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, you know, one of the reasons why game preservation is important, putting these games back out and making them available, is because the secondary market is insane.
Yeah.
Like people shouldn't have to pay $1,500 to play a game.
Even like the GameCube version of Twilight Princess is like $80. I think I have Path of Radiance. I don't know what it costs now, but it's GameCube games are so expensive.
Honestly, I would have expected that to be at least like $300.
My ex, I bought Intelligence Cube for the PlayStation 1, and I easily spent $150 on it.
Yeah, that's another one of those, like, I mean, you know, it's rare because people didn't buy it
Right.
when it originally came out, and now it's become like a cult favorite and everything. But this was a big announcement. It was exciting to see. I think people are maybe undervaluing the like possibility of having these. We talked about Eternal Darkness. That's like I don't know how it would be going back and playing it now. I love that game when it was originally released. And I think the GameCube is one of those systems that people forget didn't sell particularly well. And there's a lot of kind of undervalued games on there.
Well, we had talked about it in the sense that like they were doing a lot of like the remasters of the GameCube games. And so this provides them hopefully an opportunity, like these are games that like we would love for people to experience, but like we're not going to go in and like fully revamp them and do a whole thing. I know you had used Wave Race as an example, right? F-Zero is one of those examples. If they were to do a new F-Zero and if it was an F-Zero GX remake, I feel like people would just be like, just give me a brand new F-Zero, right? And so this list makes sense. So yeah.
Along with this, they announced that they're going to sell a wireless GameCube controller that connects to the Switch, Bluetooth.
And it has a C button.
Yes, it has the additional buttons of the Switch 2, so that's very cool to see on there. Now that certainly just makes people even more fanatical to get Melee.
I was about to say it's coming. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they are, and they don't put that out at launch because they can sit on that.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
When they put that out, they're going to get all the crazed fans, right?
Yeah.
Like buy a Switch and buy the controller.
You could probably just put Melee on there and like not even release a new Smash like for this console generation.
Yeah.
I think people like it would be a bold move, but I feel like it's a move that you could probably make work.
Oh, yeah. For
Yeah.
Sure.
You could do that, but they're not going to do that because they know a
wanna
new
make
Switch will
lots of
sell
money.
tens of millions.
Yeah. I mean, a new one, you would make so much more money, but like you could definitely do that. Or at least like here's Smash so that you stop asking us for a new
Yeah.
one for a few years.
Yeah. Here's Melee, that way Sakurai can breathe.
All right. Before we get to our big question, let's have a little big question. We don't know what maybe the changes to the launch price will be, but given what we do know currently, are you thinking that you will buy a Switch 2, if not at launch, let's say in the launch window, the first 6 months?
I will during the summer, yeah.
Probably. I talked about it. I imagine I might get a little bit of money for like my birthday, which is in the summer, and so I'll use it to buy probably one at that point if they're available. Availability is going to be the big thing, right?
Sure.
If they're unavailable, then obviously no. But if like one is there that I can purchase, yes, I will purchase it.
Yeah. I think I'm the same. Like, I don't know if I'll get immediately at launch, but I'm hoping that by this fall I'll have a real person job and not be making grad student money.
I guess with the one caveat will be depending on what that increase in
Yes.
price.
Yeah.
also
Yeah, because
is.
if it go, I saw somebody.
That's why I said, given what we know right now.
Yeah, I saw somebody predict like $900, and I was like,
Yeah,
I
no.
can't do that.
If it gets up over 600, which I think is realistic, I would probably hesitate a little bit, but anything under 600, almost assuredly.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, right now at launch, if it's 500, like I'm not happy about it.
Yeah.
But like I'll buy it because I'm going to buy it eventually.
Yes.
That's it. Exactly. I'm going to get it at some point. And as you said, it ain't ever going on sale. So
Yeah.
maybe Black Friday, you'll get some additional gadgets with it. You can get the camera or another controller or something.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think we'll see what the price. If the price goes up above that, I will probably hesitate and wait. So hoping that it drops back down eventually.
Yeah.
All right. But we do have an actual big question this week. So Derek from Kentucky writes, back in Kentucky, no longer in England. But he writes us, after returning from Poundland, I have a ponderance to put forth, or a pounderance, we could say, to put forth to the
You could
group.
say.
I'm not going to, but you.
What? He's been British culturalized. That's all we're saying. What is the most odd or weird place you've ever found yourself playing a video game? Oh no.
I was just thinking.
Christina
I was
instantly went
like-
to an inappropriate
I was
answer.
like, well, yeah, I was like on the toilet, like, because like the places I think about, like that I play them, I travel a lot, and so I take the Switch with me, and so I've been to a lot of places. The thing that came up was like, my bachelorette party, if you could call it that, was at a bar arcade, and so, but that's more like contextually weird as opposed to place.
It is a little weird,
Yeah.
like your bachelorette party to be playing video games.
Listen, I just wanted to get drunk. So yeah. So I mean, I guess that would be my answer then. But then I got married at a donut shop. So yeah,
That's amazing.
the whole experience was very me.
That's some fine catering.
Right. Like that's what.
I mean, I mean that 100% seriously.
Same. It was lovely.
I will I will give my full answer later, but I want to back up your on the toilet.
Okay.
Like the Wii U when it came out, right? Like you could be away from the
Yeah.
TV and there was a certain distance, and
Yeah.
so it was like that was the challenge to see like could you go to the bathroom and continue playing the game, and then it became
Did
a
you
thing
play
of
the Wii U while taking a Wii?
yeah, like you had to like leave the door open
Yeah.
because of the Wi.
And like lean a little.
You're like leaning half off the toilet, like with the door open, hoping nobody like else is in the house.
I just think as a Game Boy kid, toilet is classic.
Yeah,
That's
fair.
classic video game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like a friend of mine.
It didn't
has-
even register to me as a weird thing until you said that because I was a Game Boy kid.
That's a friend of mine has a kid, and like he's not allowed to go to the bathroom with his iPad because then he'll stay in there too long.
Yeah.
Well, it's like men taking the newspaper in there, right?
You
Or
gotta have something
anyone
to
with
do.
their phone
Yeah,
now.
fair.
Like,
I went into the bathroom without like my phone over Christmas break, and Melissa was like, "How do you do it?"
I mean, I feel like that's like a dark question for us to start answering. Like, how can you use the bathroom without a screen to
Something
look
to
at?
distract you.
That's the season premiere of Black Mirror.
Yeah. I was thinking
Our
Black Mirror.
bodily functions are now tethered to
Well,
our whether we have a phone. In
I
our
am
hand.
teaching that class in the honors college next fall, so I'll tell people that that's what they should propose as the new episode.
All right. Well, we have Christina's answer. Alicia, would you like to go next?
I don't even know what like weird places I go to. I mean, y'all made fun of me for listening to a video game audiobook on the beach, but
Did we?
I don't even.
I don't
you
remember making fun of you.
mentioning that.
Maybe you're sins. No, I'm just kidding. I would never call somebody that. I'm just kidding.
No. Yeah, I'm like, maybe, I mean, I feel like there was probably some time that we went to a play and, like, I brought my Game Boy and sat and played it, like,
was it a
before.
Queen cover band?
This was last week that this happened.
Oh, yeah. I forgot. It took me 2 seconds to go, wait a minute. Oh, yeah.
But yeah, like, I thought, you know, there was probably some time that Amelia and I did that, but I don't know.
I think that's kind of strange to like go to like a live theater and be
Take your game.
playing it before the show.
Well, because the other thing is you have to remember my sister was undiagnosed with autism until she was 11, and so we always had to have like a Keep Amelia Happy bag, and so then because we had that for Amelia, we had that for me, and the Game Boy was always part of it because it gave her something to hyper focus on.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like, I think it's an odd place to play it. I don't think it's odd to play it,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Yeah, like taking a video game to a theater. It's kind of-
Yeah.
Like,
Like,
just-
I don't know that we did it, but we probably did.
It sounds like something you would.
Especially if you had those bags, right?
Yeah.
Like, that makes sense.
Yeah, you would do that with a kid. I can see that. Mario.
Same thing. I don't know if it's odd or weird, but I'm saying this answer because I can almost guarantee that it'll never happen again. Was hair salon. That's not funny because I'm bald, but specifically because
I was gonna say it.
I was.
What, he beat us to the joke.
well, so specifically it was hair salon that my mom was at. I was maybe like 10 or so because I remember specifically playing Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, just waiting for her while she was getting her hair done. And at one point, I beat the big soda boss that I could not beat. And I remember walking over to my and as she was probably like, I don't know, getting her hair colored or something like that and showing it to
That's real
her.
cute.
But so yeah, that will almost assuredly never happen again.
I was
But,
gonna make another joke about, so you weren't bald yet.
I wasn't bald at that point.
But that's real cute.
But also I don't exactly spend a ton of time in barber shops either anymore. So
Yeah,
That's great, though.
that's a good one. Yeah, I was trying to think like an actual odd place because I like often when I travel, I don't take video games with me because I end up just not playing them.
Yeah.
Like as an adult. So one thing I did think of an odd place that I feel like I've played a video game was Disney World. Disney World, the Contemporary Hotel, we stayed there when we were kids, and I remember there was a big arcade in the basement.
Oh,
It's
cool.
not there anymore,
Yeah.
but it used to be this like giant, at the time felt ginormous arcade, right? This
Yeah.
is before Dave and Buster's and stuff like that existed. And so I remember playing video games there. Like we had gone back to the room for the night. My parents were like, yeah, I can go downstairs. And me and my brother and sister going down there and playing video games. And then Epcot Center used to have, what was it? The future, like it was like the world of the future, like on display where they would have like the smart house stuff and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
And there'd be games in there. So, playing a video game at Disney World seems a little weird.
There, I once took. Have y'all ever heard of the Curtis Hotel in Denver? So it's a hotel where every floor is like a different theme. So like they do have a 13th floor, and it's like horror themed. There was one floor. I either wanted the horror one or there was a video game floor, and in every room they had like a what's it?
Like the arcade cabinet?
Yes, yeah, cabinet. That's the word I can think of. Cabinet. But I got neither of those floors.
Oh,
I got the
sad.
sci-fi floor,
Oh,
which
that is
was
well,
still cool. But I'm
Yeah.
not a huge sci-fi person, and so I was like,
yeah.
Yeah, maybe
that's a cool
maybe-
idea for each of the floors to be themed differently.
For sure.
Especially if people could like request a
yeah,
floor.
when I called in, I requested that, and they were like, "That's a popular floor," and I was like, "Yeah, because people are weird, including myself."
But if I was going to give another answer about this, like a more modern answer, I guess. So Playing for Pets, when we did it at my previous university, was a 24-hour event. And we held it in the theater where we did plays and everything.
Oh, I bet that was cool.
And so, like, you had the like sort of stadium seating up, and it was much more kind of extreme, like the stadium seating and everything. So it ended up, but it's still a small little room and everything. But we had in the back, we had like food set up and everything.
Oh, that's
we had
really cool.
people come in. But like what made it really crazy is because we did 24 hours a day. So like, you know, it's Saturday morning at like 2 a.m. and you're in there playing video games on a college campus. And I know one year, the Friday that we started it was Friday the 13th.
Oh,
So
man.
at midnight, we started playing the Friday the 13th
Yeah,
game.
yeah.
And we were playing it and we like turned the lights down and everything. And we're playing that. So like, that's like kind of like, you know, and you're in there with like, you know, well, it kind of depended, but like, let's say 30 to 50 people in the room, and we're playing these games and everything at 2 a.m, which is not like, you know, a thing that I do very often on a college campus. So that's kind of an unusual place, but
That's really cool.
Yeah.
yeah, good question. Thanks, Derek. If you have a question you'd like for us to answer, you can send it in to justin.young@siu.edu, and we try to include those questions whenever we get a chance. But that does it for this week's show. Next episode, we will try to get back to talking about all things video games, not just Nintendo related.
And we'll talk about the Minecraft movie that we will have definitely seen.
Okay. Mario is very emphatic about this. Christina continues to shake her head no.
Christina's going to get randomly sick again to avoid
I'm not going to get sick again, but I would just warn you that I am very busy. Like, maybe Sunday night I could. Maybe.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We'll make a plan.
I was not randomly sick.
Is Tuesdays the cheap night at VIP?
Tuesday is the cheap
Oh.
day.
Maybe we go next Tuesday.
Yeah, I could do that.
Anyways, that does it for this week's show. Thank you, Christina, Alicia, and Mario. Thank you for listening. You can always check out more at salukigames.com. We will be back soon with another episode. Until then, play something fun and enjoy.